I mean, he's a real soldier, my sister said with a smug smile, lifting her wine glass. Not some desk worker. Her fiancé stood proudly beside her in his decorated army uniform, wearing the confidence of someone used to being admired. Dad laughed. Mom tried to hide a smile but couldn't. I sat quietly in my navy dress whites, my untouched dinner resting in front of me. Don't take it personally, Danielle, my sister added. Some of us actually serve in dangerous places. Then with a careless wave of her hand she knocked over her glass. Dark red wine poured across my uniform, soaking my chest and lap. Oh no, she said with fake surprise. Guess that little badge couldn't protect you. The table burst into laughter. Everyone laughed. Except Jake. His smile disappeared. His eyes were locked on the insignia above my name tag. The bronze and silver stitching caught the light as he leaned forward. He squinted. Then all the color drained from his face. He recognized it. Without saying another word, I stood. Excuse me, I said quietly. I need to clean up. The wine wasn't the worst stain in that room. And Jake knew it. I changed in silence, staring at my soaked uniform lying in the bathroom sink. When I returned, no one even noticed. They were too busy admiring my sister's engagement ring. Only Jake looked different. He hadn't touched his food. His posture was stiff, like someone who had just realized he'd made a terrible mistake. When our eyes met, the confidence was gone. You served with the 7th Fleet? He asked softly. My sister rolled her eyes. Don't encourage her, Jake. She pushed paperwork in an office. He ignored her. Where were you stationed? Okinawa, I answered. 5 years. Then Diego Garcia. He swallowed. Special clearance? I nodded once. That was enough. Most people wouldn't recognize my insignia. But soldiers who had worked alongside Navy intelligence knew exactly what it meant. It wasn't a decoration. It represented classified missions, combat coordination, intelligence work, and operations that never made the news. Jake understood immediately. He turned toward my sister. You never told me she worked in Navy intelligence. My sister frowned. She's what? The room fell silent. What's the big deal? She asked. She just filed paperwork. Jake slowly shook his head. You coordinated missions, didn't you? I stayed silent. Live operations, real-time intelligence, field support. My father snorted. So what? Radio work isn't the same as fighting. Jake looked directly at him. With respect, sir. Sometimes the people on the ground don't make it home without someone like her. Nobody had a reply. Mom finally whispered, let's just eat. I ignored her. Dad, I looked at Jake. You were in Kandahar in 2019? His eyes widened. Yeah. 2nd deployment. I remember your unit code in the operation reports. He stared at me in complete disbelief. My sister slammed her hand on the table. What is happening? She's not some war hero. I calmly met her eyes. It wasn't information you were allowed to know. That ended the argument. Not because my sister understood, but because Jake did. And the way he looked at me had completely changed. Dessert arrived. No one touched it. Jake suddenly pushed back his chair. Excuse me. He walked outside. Through the window, I watched him pace across the porch with his phone in his hand. A minute later, my sister followed him. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I didn't need to. She talked with animated gestures. He refused to look at her. When she reached for his hand, he stepped back. Inside, Dad leaned toward me. You always do this, he muttered. You always have to make everything about yourself. I looked at him calmly. I didn't say a single word until she dumped wine on my uniform. He shrugged. She was nervous. You know how she is. That had always been their excuse. You know how she is. No one ever asked how I was. Not after sleepless nights monitoring classified operations. Not after spending hours tracking intelligence that helped soldiers like Jake avoid deadly ambushes. Not after missing birthdays, holidays, and family gatherings because duty came first. Yet I still remembered every anniversary. I still sent flowers. Most of the time they never even acknowledged them. The front door opened. My sister walked back inside. Her eyes were red. Her jaw was tight. He left, she snapped. He said he needs time. Then she turned toward me. What did you say to him? I looked at her without raising my voice. I didn't have to say much. He recognized the truth, I said quietly. That's all. My sister let out a bitter laugh. The truth? Please. You sat behind a desk. You're not a hero, Danielle. You're just an invisible woman trying to feel important. Mom and Dad didn't defend me. They simply sat there in silence. Somehow that hurt more than her words. I took a slow breath, stood and walked to the sideboard. From my bag I removed a thin folder and placed it gently on the table. Inside was a heavily redacted letter of commendation bearing the seal of the U.S. Navy and Joint Forces Command. Beneath it sat a framed photograph. 6 soldiers stood beside a damaged helicopter in the Hindu Kush. Most of their faces were blurred. One wasn't. Jake stared at the picture. Dad frowned. What is this? I looked around the table. This mission, I said calmly, is the operation where your future son-in-law's extraction point was compromised. Everyone froze. My team rerouted the live GPS feed, coordinated a new extraction route and brought in the backup helicopter. I looked at Jake. You don't owe me anything. He lowered his head. But you remember. My sister's confidence cracked. So what? She snapped. Are you trying to steal my fiancé? I slowly shook my head. No. I didn't have to do anything. Truth was enough. 2 days later, Jake arrived outside my base. He wasn't carrying flowers. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He came looking for answers. I looked into your record, he said. As much as I could. Most of it's classified. He paused. But what I did find. He looked at me with genuine respect. Danielle, I don't know how many soldiers are alive because of you. I stayed silent. There wasn't anything to add. He sighed. When I proposed to your sister, I thought I knew the kind of person she was. His voice grew quieter. I was wrong. I raised an eyebrow. And now I know who you are. He looked away. I watched her humiliate you. I watched your parents let it happen. That's not a family. That's an audience. I leaned back. If you're ending the engagement, do it because it's the right decision. Don't use me as the reason. He nodded. I understand. As he reached the door he stopped. For what it's worth. He smiled faintly. Thank you. For the mission. And for today. Then he walked away. I sat alone for several minutes. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel angry. Only clear. Sometimes clarity is far more satisfying than revenge. Because once the truth is revealed, it no longer needs defending. By the end of the week everyone knew. Jake had ended the engagement. My sister fell apart. She cried to friends, relatives and strangers online. She painted herself as the victim. She manipulated him. She lied about her military career. She stole my future. The stories changed every day. There was only one problem. Military records don't lie. I never responded. I never posted. Jake did. Under one of her emotional social media posts, he left a single comment. You mocked a decorated veteran in front of your own family. I didn't leave because of her. Asterisk I left because of you. Sis. That was all. No arguments followed. No public fight. People simply stopped defending her. Followers quietly disappeared. The carefully crafted image she'd built for years began to crumble. A day later Mom sent me a text. Asterisk, you humiliated your sister. Sis. I stared at it. Then put my phone away. I hadn't humiliated anyone. She had done that herself. All I did was exist long enough for the truth to surface. People often imagine revenge feels satisfying. It didn't. What I felt was peace. Because sometimes you don't have to destroy a bridge. You simply step aside and let people burn it themselves. A month later a handwritten letter arrived. No return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Jake. There was no apology. No confession. No attempt to start over. Just one sentence. Asterisk, you wear silence like armor, not to protect yourself but to protect people who never earned it. Sis. I read those words over and over. Because they were true. For 8 years I stayed quiet. Through family dinners. Through insults. Through every joke about my service. I convinced myself silence kept the peace. But peace isn't real when one person has to suffer to create it. That dinner changed everything. Not because my family finally understood me, but because I finally understood myself. A few months later, I transferred to a smaller city. Life became quieter. I started teaching at the base academy, mentoring young women beginning their military careers. Many of them reminded me of who I used to be. Brilliant, capable, afraid to speak. Whenever they asked about my career, I told them one lesson I had learned the hard way. Sometimes the strongest thing you'll ever do is stay calm while the truth speaks for itself. Let your actions echo louder than your words. And let time reveal who people truly are.